Hey friends, welcome to this first video. Now here, I'd like to give you a tour through the Power BI interface. Now I assume that you have never worked with Power BI before, so let's get started. First thing I want to highlight is when you open Power BI, you should see an interface kind of similar to this one. Why do I say kind of? Well, the reason is that Power BI is under constant development, which means in the future, the interface might slightly change. However, I assure you that everything we learned during the course is up to date, and you can use this in order to create your reports. And in addition to that, of course, I also will update the course in the future. So let's get started. At first, when you want to start working with Power BI, you need some data to visualize. Now, in order to import the data, there are various options. The most easy and obvious one, of course, is you can see in the middle of the screen when you open Power BI, there's an option to click on various data sources to connect to. For instance, I can use Excel here, I can use the SQL or SQL Server from Microsoft, I can use paste data here as a blank table, or also try sample dataset, which is also different datasets which are provided by Microsoft. You can also click on here, get data from another source, if the specific data sources which are listed here are not the ones you want to use. Just in case you would say, I'd like to connect to Excel, all you need to do is you click on this Excel button here, for instance, and then you open, in this case on my computer here, a specific folder, and then I can choose any kind of Excel file in order to connect. I won't do it right now, because we will do this later on in the course, but that's how easy it is, that's how it works. Other options would be to go under Home. As you can see in the ribbon bar, there's also Excel Workbook up here. And if you import or you want to import data, you can also click up here and you get exactly the same here. Open pop-up window, which you can then select this specific file. The same is true here for the other data sources which are available, like Power BI datasets, for instance, SQL Server. You can manually enter data, so create a static table if you want, and also Dataverse is available. Recent sources would only point to specific sources you have worked in the past. If those data sources are, again, not the ones you want to choose, then you can go to Get Data, click this option here, and then there are various, again, data sources you can connect to. Of course, you always find the specific ones from Microsoft products first appearing here, but again, if what you're searching for is not available here, the other thing would be simply click on More here, and then you just need to wait a few seconds, and a window appears here. There is it, Get Data, and this lists you all the specific data sources that are available. So you can see it's quite a lot. Various databases, flat files, and other kinds of online sources if you want, so everything available. And if you want to be a little bit more specific, you can either search if you already know the name, or you can search here and pre-filter, like file-based data sources, database, data sources, and so on. Everything is available. Also from the web, if you're referring to online services. Let me click on Cancel. So that's it about getting the data. So 3 options. Either here, or click on Get Data from here, from other sources, or you do it in the ribbon menu. Talking about the ribbon menu, this is what it currently looks like for me, but some people prefer it if you click on this little up arrow here, switch ribbons, and this view here. So it's also available. So if you prefer this view here with little icons instead of having them bigger with text, you can also work this way. It's up to you. But for me, I leave it the opening bigger interface. Okay? As I said, totally up to you. So under the Home ribbon, there are various options. As we said, of course, we can connect to data, which is under the Data tab here. But then there's also this Queries tab here, which is Transform Data. This Transform Data opens up the Power Query Editor. The editor, also we're going to use this later on, allows us to clean our data. You also get additional information, as you can see here, if you hover over the icons. So use the Power Query Editor to connect, prepare, and transform data. This is very helpful because most often, you all know that if you work with Excel files, but also with other files, they are not in the right format. There's a lot of cleaning to do, and this is what the query editor allows us to do with only a few clicks of our mouse. So that's really powerful and a tremendous help if you start working with Power BI. The refresh option is currently grayed out. This would only be available, of course, if we have already connected to data. And then, of course, if the underlying data source changes, because we have modified the data source, we would need to click on refresh to see the latest data. In order to insert anything, there's this insert tab here, which is referring to visuals, text boxes, and also more visuals here. So for instance, if I click on new visual, what I get is a template, which you can see here. And I could fill this template with data. So in the next couple of videos, when we connect to data, we can then add the data to visualize something. And this can be various visualization types like bar charts, pie charts, it could be donut charts, tree maps, and so on. So a lot of options in here. The other way to create the visual would simply be take a look on the right side here in this visual box here. There are all the default visuals which are available. As you can see here, and if you hover over them, you get information what kind of a chart it is, even though you could also see it, of course, if you take a look at the image itself. And you can see there are a lot of default visualizations already available. But of course, if this is not enough for you, you could also click on the three dots here to go to App Source. So App Source, if I go here and go to Get More Visuals, if I take this option, then App Source opens, which is this one. And this is simply a gallery provided by Microsoft. And there are various third-party providers which create additional, in this case, visualizations which you can add to your report. You can search for a specific visualization type. For instance, you search for a Sankey chart, anything like that, you can search for that. Or you can also filter here by specific areas if you want. And in order to then add one of the visuals, I only need to click it. Like for instance, this chiclet slicer here, I can tick this option here. It's loading. It gives you additional information in here. And if I click on add, like that, then you'll see that now it's imported successfully. So it has been downloaded. And here it's also available in here. And I can use it by simply clicking on it. So with the app source, there's one important thing to notice here. In order to click the three dots and do the same, what I have done here, you need to first sign in with your Microsoft account. So you need to have a Microsoft account in order to click on the three dots and go to App Source and download the visual. And one important point here to point out is that a Microsoft account currently is not available with your personal email address. You need to have an email address from an institution or your work email to sign up for that. So there are a few ways to go around this limitation, but in general, that's what you need. Okay? And then as soon as you're logged in, as I said, then you click on the three dots and you can download it. So the same is true, of course, if you go to more visuals under the Insert tab here. So if I go in here and say from App Source, and I click this option, I can see exactly the same pop-up window in here. So the other option would be to download. So you can also search App Source with your browser, download the specific visual, and then you can say from files and import the visual. That would be the second option if you don't want to do it directly in here, clicking on three dots or clicking on from App Source here. It's up to you. In order to remove a visual, because we still have our template, just select it and press the delete key, and then it's gone. Another option here is the text box, quite easy. Simply click on the text box here, then it's available, and then you can add here some text. For instance, let's say, hello, Power BI, like that. I can then press Ctrl A to highlight everything. And I'd like to increase the size a little bit. Let's say 20 here. Let's make it bold. Let's center it. And of course, you can also adjust here specific kind of, fonts if you want to do that. So just need to put it here. Here we go. And now, whenever you click it, you select it, you get, again, the option to customize it. Otherwise, I click, drag and drop it, and can place it somewhere. And you also see, if I drag it somewhere, I can see this red dotted lines in here. This one, for instance, which allows me or tells me that currently it's centered, which you should be familiar if you worked with PowerPoint before. So all this, which is helpful in PowerPoint, like aligning and so on, it's also available in Power BI. And the great thing here is that if I click it, if I go to the additional, you can see here there are additional tabs which are appearing as soon as you have a visualization in here. If I deselect it, you see that they are gone. But if I select the visualization and click on Format, I have here the option to align, to send it backward, bring to front, and so on. So everything you're familiar from PowerPoint is also available in here, which again is a great feature because it makes it easier to learn Power BI. The Edit Interaction option up here, just to mention this, allows us to specify how a visual should interact with other visuals. So should a visual filter other visuals or not? This can be specified here with Edit Interactions. And we will have a closer look at this when we create our reports. So again, just to show you that, click on Format here, and if I go to Align here and say I want to align it center, you see that now this has moved into the center. Of course, I can also make it smaller, bigger, and so on. It's up to me, okay? So that's how that works. So what else do we have? Well, in here, under the Home tab, we have the New Measures and the Quick Measure. This is all around calculations. So that means calculations in Power BI means DAX. So DAX is the language in Power BI, which allows us to create formulas and calculations. And this is how we can do this. Creating on this New Measure option here, or also create quick measures. They are both currently grayed out. The reason for this is that currently I don't have any data. That's why I can't create a measure. The difference between quick measures and measures is measures means that we create the measure ourselves. And quick measures allows us to, well, speed up this process a little bit by dragging and dropping fields inside, and then Power BI will create a measure for us. However, I just want to mention this here. During the course, we learn DAX, and we will create a lot of measures by ourselves. And this is what I highly encourage you to do first, because you want to learn DAX in order to create your own measures. Because the quick measures can only get you so far. But if you don't know what you're doing, and you only rely on quick measures, then your Power BI skills are quite limited. And this is not what we desire. This is why we will use the measure and learn DAX from scratch. Sensivity here allows us to add sensitivity labels to our reports. This is something which might be helpful if you work in a company environment, which means that, for instance, certain reports contain very sensitive data, and then you can add those labels if they have specified upfront by your IT administrator or Power BI administrator. You can add them to your reports, and then people know if they interact with the report, okay, this is a highly important topic which we need to be very aware of, for instance. The publishing option allows us then to share our reports, because at the end of the day, of course, all we do here is locally, so we develop our report, but then of course we want to share them with our audience, meaning, for instance, other colleagues in our organization or customers or someone else. And in order to do this, we can publish it. Publishing really means to share the data via either the Power BI service, which is on the internet in the cloud, or via the report server, which could also be an option if a company chooses, for instance, to use Power BI locally. Then there's a report server option. However, I won't go into detail into that because most often the cloud is the better version and better option. You would simply click on this publishing option and then you specify the workspace. So a specific folder, actually, kind of a folder in Power BI service where you want to publish a report, and then you can do that. Of course, also for publishing, you need to be signed in to Power BI. So what else do we have? Well, under Insert, let's go to the next ribbon here. We can find, again, various options we already have seen. For instance, you can add new visuals or more visuals. If I click on here, I find it also from App Source and My Files. So this is exactly the same as we have seen under Home in here, these two options. So it's kind of redundant. However, I personally prefer this because sometimes I don't find what I want immediately, and if there's a second option to do the same, then it's quite helpful for me at least. So as I said, you find also the visual option here under Insert. New Page allows us to add additional pages to our report. Currently, you can see we are on page number 1. I can either click on a plus symbol to create a new page, or I can go to new page here, click on this, and then I can either add a blank page, or if I have created a very interesting page here, I've added various visuals, I can also simply duplicate the page. So if I click on duplicate here, you would see that I have duplicated page 1, and I get also Hello Power BI in here. So let's maybe change this for now. Let's say second page, just for now. And of course, if you want to rename the pages, you can either right-click here and say you want to rename. There you can also delete them or hide them, or again, duplicate them. Or what I most often do, I simply double-click and say, this is, for instance, page 2. So that's how you can do that. So under AI visuals, this is related to artificial intelligence. There's, for instance, the Q&A visual, which is currently grayed out because we have no data again. And there's also a key influencer visual, decomposition tree, and smart narrative. These visuals also can be found in here. So actually all the visuals which are highlighted here are also available here in this visual pane in here. This is why later on during the course, I will only use this pane, because that's what I'm most used to. But of course, you can also go to insert and insert the specific visual from here. It's up to you. Other options here are related to Power Platform. This would be paginated reports. However, currently, I just want to mention this is a premium feature. So if you don't have Power BI Premium, then you can't use the paginated reports. Power Apps is related to inserting a Power App. Power App is also part of the Microsoft Power Platform. So it's a kind of option to create an app without coding skills. And you can also insert this app inside Power BI if you want to do that. And Power Automate would be the Power Automate visuals, which allows you to trigger Power Automate flows. So Power Automate, just in case you don't know that, is also part of the Power Platform. Again, it's also from Microsoft, and it allows us to automate specific tasks. So you can create a flow, that's what it's called, Power Automate, flows, and then within this flow, specific tasks are executed for you automatically based on a certain trigger. Could be an event, the event could be time-based, or could be simply, for instance, an email arrives and something should happen. This can be done with Power Automate. The other options here are elements you can also add to your reports. Again, it's a text box, we've seen this before. Then there are buttons. If you click on the down arrow here, you see what kind of buttons are there. For instance, left, right, reset, back button, and so on. So for instance, if I add a back button in here, you see that there's the button. And if I press Control click here, I will go back to page number 1. So you can use this as page navigation buttons. See here, I'm on page number 2, Control click, and I'm on page number 1. By the way, the Control click option, if I click on page number 2, and if I hover over here, you can see it tells you also you need to click Control and the left mouse button. Whenever you are in the developer view, which is this one here, you need to do this. However, later, when you publish the report to the Power BI service, then the end user of the report only needs to click with his or her left mouse button. So there's no need to hold the Control button. This is only in the developer view in here. Next to buttons, which are available here, we also have shapes. So you can add any kind of shape you want to your report. So for instance, if I click on one of the shapes, click on the rectangle, for instance, I have here my shape. I can drag and drop it around. Again, I can also align it specifically to a specific icon here, image, if I want to do that. And also, I can add images if I want. All you need to do is click on image here, and then you can choose one of the images. Here I only have this one, so I can click on it, click on open, and then this image would also be available. And I can also resize it. I can drag it around if I want and place it somewhere. It's up to me. So for instance, if I drag it in here, this could be your company logo. You can put it here, or maybe place it at the bottom, or wherever you want to put it. It's up to you. So next to this, you might have seen this already, but if you select something, then you see, if I deselect it, that this pane here changes. So if I have not selected anything, you can see by default, I can see all the different kinds of charts in here. But as soon as I select something, for instance here, the shape, it changes and it gives you some options here. regarding the shape. So for instance, if you click on shape here, I can change the shape here if I want to do that. So for instance, if I click on octagon, you see that now the shape has changed. So I can really customize here the specific visual which I currently have selected based on the options I have here. So for instance, rotation, you can also play around with this, drag it, and you see that now it rotates. So various options in here. And under style, you can adjust the color. So if I want to use a different color here, I can tick this option, or I can also do conditional formatting, you clicking on the FX button. It's also something we have a look later on, but also it's up to you whether you want to do that or not. And there are other options like adding a border, or do you want to add some text to the shape or not? Do you want to play around with the shadow? Just tick on the specific option here, and then you can go in here and then customize here various options, transparency or the blur effect. If you play around with this, you see that the shape changes accordingly. And the glow is also available in here. So you can see there are a lot of options, and I would encourage you, of course, later on to try them out just to figure out what's available in here. And also, if you click on the three dots here, there are various other things which are quite helpful. As first, of course, you can expand all categories. If you do, or click on collapse all categories, then you have here the default view again. This is especially helpful if you ticked a lot of them and open them, and you need to scroll down, and simply you don't need to make them small again or collapse them individually. You can simply collapse all categories. Same is true, you can expand all categories. If you tick this, then all the options are available here for you. I just say that because there are other, especially the visuals, which have a lot of more customization options in here. And that's why it's quite helpful to do this with one click in here. And the third option, which is also new in here, is this revert all settings to default. So if I tick this option, I get my original, in this case, shape back, which in this case is a square, which is quite helpful, especially if you have modified something and then at the end you say, well, that's not actually what I want. You can do that with one click just to go back. So that's for the shape. And there's also this general tab here. You can tick here, and there's also additional informations like, do you want to add a title? You can go in here, and then if you open this and say edit title, for instance, you see that now there's a title to this specific shape in here, which again can be customized regarding the font, the size, the color, and so on. And whenever you see an FX button, this means that for the specific, in this case, trait, which is available in here, you can also, the feature is available in here, you can also conditional formatting that if you want to do that. So that's basically an important thing to notice. So whenever you tick something, especially here, one of the specific boxes here, or the visuals later on, then this formatting window here changes and allows you here to customize the specific visual the way you want it. So let's go to the next tab, modeling here, talk about that. Under modeling, again, there's kind of redundancy, which I personally think is quite helpful. So there's also the option to take a look at the calculations in here. We can add new measures, new quick measures. We have seen this before under home, if you remember. There are these options here as well. And they're also under modeling here. And there's also an option to add new column. New column would mean that you add a column to a specific table, which you have when you import data. A new table would allow us to create a complete new table from scratch using DAX. So again, we can write a table on our own using DAX expressions, and this would be an option by clicking here. Change detections here would allow us to see any changes regarding page refreshers here if we want to do that. And the next option here, this is quite interesting for us, which is new parameter. We will also cover this in the course, which allows us to do what if or scenario analysis, which means that, for instance, you say, I have various sales scenarios and I expect that my sales will increase or decrease, or the costs will rise a certain percentage. And it allows you to create a parameter, which then the end user in the report can change and see what this means for the total sales, for instance, or the outlook for the whole year, depending on what kind of scenario you create. But that's what this what if parameter allows us to do. Security, this is all about here creating roles and viewing those roles. This means that sometimes you want to create a report, And this report then should be limited. So basically the information in the report should be limited to a certain audience. For instance, let's say you create a report which contains the sales data for all the world. And you're in a global company, but then you want to share the report with your US colleagues. And then you also want to share the report with some colleagues from India. And you want to share the report from some colleagues from, let's say, Europe. And then what you need or what you want to set up is that the US colleagues should only see US data, the Indian colleagues should only see sales for India, and the European colleagues should only see sales for Europe. And if you have this kind of use case, this means that you need to limit the amount of data someone can see. And you can do that by creating roles. You can do it here by simply clicking role, and then you create a security role, and then all you need to do is then you need to add specific users to this role. So security will be created inside Power BI and then can be then set up or managed via the service by adding specific users to this role. That's how that works. And the view as simply allows you, after you have created the role, to see what this data would look like for someone who has then this specific role. So just to check that your security you have created also works. That's what this is for. And the Q&A here, this again is regarding to the Q&A setup and the visual. We'll have a closer look at the Q&A visual later on. But this is all about an option to allow the end consumer, for instance, to type in a question, and based on the question, then a specific visual will be created. That's what this is for. And you can adjust the Q&A regarding the training and so on here in this. If you don't know what I'm talking about or can't imagine this in detail, don't worry, as I said. So under View, let's take another look. Here we have various themes which are available in Power BI. So for instance, I can click on this Bloom theme here if I like this, if I tick this option, and now you see I got this purple theme here, which of course then continues for other pages here as well. So let me maybe go back in here, just to go back to the default one because I don't want to use this, but that's how easy it is to choose one of those custom themes. And there are other ones available. Simply click on this down arrow, and then you can see what's available by default, which are these themes here. If you don't like the ones which are available by default, you can also click on Browse for Themes or click on Theme Gallery if you search for additional themes. You also have the option, by the way, to customize a current theme. So if you tick this option here, then this window appears, and here you can name the theme. You can choose the default colors which will be used. So for instance, you can see in this theme currently, the blue here is the default color. Let me just untick this, and that's why this is filled in this blue by default. But let me go there one more time. Go to Customize Current Theme. There you have the option to change the colors if you want to do that. That's especially helpful, of course, if you're working in a big company. You probably have a corporate identity, which means that you have specific colors you want to use. And also, if I go to text, for instance, there are specific fonts you want to use, font size, and so on. And this can be customized for everything. You can see it here. If I can go to title, I will adjust it only for the titles of my visuals. If I go to cards and KPIs, I can change it here for the cards and KPIs. If I go to tab headers, I can change it for tab headers, and so on. So I can really be specific. For the text here, how do I want to proceed with the visuals? If I go to visuals, I can customize here the background color by default, which is white, the transparency, the border, the header, the tooltip, and so on. So a lot of options are available in here if you want to customize this. And as soon as you're done, simply click on Apply, and then you have saved the theme. The last option also, I want to highlight this if you want to create your own theme regarding the corporate identity, because the theme itself is only a JSON file, which can also be created by your company itself. If you click on a drop-down option here and go to how to create a theme, you get additional information exactly how a theme in JSON would be written. So this can be done maybe by your marketing department or anything like that. And then you simply need to import this theme, and then you have your corporate identity theme and can use it in all your reports. Simply click on how to create a theme if you're interested in that. And then Microsoft gives you much more details and also a template as far as I know. So that's about it for themes. Then there is this page fit. If I go in here, you can say fit to page, fit to width, actual size, and so on. So here I can adjust the page if I want to do that. The mobile layout, if I click on this, this allows me here to switch to a mobile phone layout. So, and here I can customize what should my report look like if someone visualizes or takes a look at the report on his or her mobile device. And a great thing here is not only that it's easy to set up, but also I can customize this. What I mean by that is in my current report, I don't have too much, right? We only created the text box, added here a square and also this image. But I can here choose what exactly do I want to show inside my mobile layout. Simply by dragging and dropping them in here. As you can see here, now it's available. I can place it, I can make it bigger, smaller, the way I want it. And then I can add the next one here. So for instance, here I can go on the second page, I can drag this inside and add it in here and so on, right? So, and if I scroll down, of course, I can add additional things in here. And this means, as I said, it's not only easy to set up, it also allows you to specify exactly what of the visuals from your report do you want to actually show in the mobile device or on the mobile device. So that means that you can show only a snapshot or let's say a subset of the visualizations inside the mobile report. So if, for instance, the board members, right, or the CEO of your company is only interested in certain visualizations from this report, then only add those specific visualizations to his or mobile or her mobile view, right? So that's how you can customize that if you want. And of course, you can also click on this option, remove everything. Yes, I want to remove it. And then of course, you can start from scratch if you want to do that. And to go back, simply click on this mobile layout here and untick it here. So that's the option here. Then there are also page options in here, like do you want to show grid lines? I can tick this option and then you see you have the grid lines in here. So if you prefer working this way, it's up to you, simply tick this option here. Snap the grid, also do you want to snap that, and also whether you want to lock options. And again, I always encourage you, just if you go with the mouse over an option or a specific item here, you can also get a little description here, which tells you exactly what this is for. The show paints option here, regarding the paints which are available here, by default, the filters pane, for instance, is available. You can see here it's currently shrinked, but if I click on this option, then I can expand it, and there are options here to slice and dice, basically to filter the data. So for instance, if you select a visual, I can drag then specific filters in here, and then I can filter the data in the visual if I want to do that. Also, if you don't want to show it, simply untick it. So if I click on this filter option here, you see that now this window is not available in here. So it's up to me whether I want to show it or not. Tick it, then it's available in here. And you can shrink it if you want it and also expand it. The same is true for bookmarks and selections and the other ones. So if I tick this option, then the bookmark is available. If I untick it, simply by clicking on close here, I can remove it completely and it's not visible. So it makes sense maybe to only show this if you want to really use them, right? The same is true for the selection. Selection simply shows you the order of specific items. So also, for instance, image here, you can see currently the image is on top. So if I drag it above this one here, you can see that the image is visible because it's on top of the shape in here. But if I would go in here and use my text, what is it here? The edit title, this one, if I drag and drop it on top like that, this would now mean that this is in front. So the selection here also allows you to specify here the order. Like we've seen before, if you go to format here and say, do you want to send it backwards, bring forward, and so on. It's also possible by simply dragging and dropping fields in here. So let me just close it for now. And let me maybe drag this somewhere else so we can see everything again. So these are the options here. Let's go again to view. And the other options here, just to mention this, Performance Analyzer allows you here to figure out if your report is slow, what kind of, what's the reason for that? So what kind of visuals, for instance, do need the longest time to load? This would be visible by the Performance Analyzer if you want to check that. And the Synchronize Slicers allows you to synchronize slices across various pages. So just that you heard that for now. So then the help option here, this gives you additional options to click about to see the current version of Power BI you're using. You can go to guided learning, to the documentation to find more information here, and also to the community, where I sometimes ask specific questions regarding Power BI, which you can also either ask yourself or read through them if you want to do that. You can also submit ideas if you have any kind of proposal to make Power BI better, or if there's a specific feature you're missing, then you can submit your idea, and maybe your feature or your idea is then introduced in the next couple of versions. So under external tools, just to mention this previously, here, you can see that there are additional external tools which I have installed. For instance, DAX Studio or Tabular Editor. These are simply options to figure out again regarding the performance of your report. And also Tabular Editor is a great tool which allows some kind of scripting. I don't want to go into details here, but it allows us to, for instance, reduce the amount of DAX measures we need to write on our own. So great tools, and I also actually covered this in another course. So if you're interested in that, you can reach out to me if you want. So these are the options we have under the tab menu in here by default. And then we have 3 additional things which I like to mention here, which is these 3 views. The first one, the one we are currently on the whole time, is the report view. This is what we actually see. So this is also what the end user sees. Then we have 2 additional views here, which is this one, the data view. And if you tick this option, then here, and you will see this in the next couple of videos, here you can see your data as tables. So all the data you imported in here in Power BI, you can see them here, also all the tables inside. And the third option here, this is the model view. And this is quite powerful because the model view here, this allows us here to see all the data, so all the tables, maybe Excel or SQL Server data tables or whatever, which we imported here, and this allows us to create connections between them. Because if you have worked with or have some database experience, you know that you can join data. So basically link data together based on some common fields in order to get additional information. If you have not used databases before, you're probably familiar with, let's say, VLOOKUPs or index match from Excel. Which also allows you to get data from a different table if you have a common field which you connect the tables to. And that's exactly what you can do here. You can create relationships. So think about, for instance, you have a table with a lot of sales data, but there's not much information about the product which has been sold. Only maybe a product ID. But then you have a second table, and this second table gets all the information about the product next to the ID. And the ID is the common field you can use in order to link those tables together. That's what you can do here inside the model view. And you need to create the relationships. You can do that quite easily. You'll see that. And this allows you then to have a data model. And this data model is then optimized for Power BI. So, of course, as I said, we'll see this in the next video. So, next couple of videos. Okay, so let's go back to report view. And that's it. So that was kind of a long tour through the Power BI interface, I know, but we've gone through everything which is available in here, and of course in the videos and during the course we will cover this and then go into more details. But I think that's hopefully quite helpful for you, especially if you have never seen Power BI before, to get a first tour and see what's available in here. So that's it. Thanks a lot for watching, and I can't wait to see you in the next video. Until then, best guys.